Welcome to Mangastorian's Berserk series. Now in our last video we watched as Guts and his friends fought against Bonebeard the pirate and his horde of tentacle crewmen. But just as everyone thought they had finally pulled ahead, Guts and Shirke set out to kill the tentacles from the source, the fabled sea god. Just as the two of them found the sea god, Guts decided the best way to take down a god was to plunge his sword straight into its mouth. With Guts setting his sights on the sea god's giant maw, he jumped from creature to creature, getting himself ever closer to its mouth. And as he jumps one last time, he tells Shirke, "Hold tight, we're going in." He begins to run up one of the tentacles connected to the sea god's mouth, and right as it roars, he leaps inside. Bonebeard and his pirates stare for a moment, and they burst out laughing, stating, "What a foolish landlubber he was to get himself swallowed whole! What was he even thinking? He's gonna be fish slopped by sunrise. But with that taken care of, it's time for us to head to the main course of this feast." Inside the sea god's stomach, Guts and Shirke fall directly into the belly of the beast to find a whole graveyard of ships the sea god has swallowed before. Guts looks around, stating that those tentacles must have dragged these ships in, and Shirke tells him that and the people have been assimilated. Shirke then asks Guts what he's planning on doing now that they've gotten here, and Guts asks her, "Can she hear it?" She stops and listens and hears a low rumbling and asks if that's the gunfire from the seahorse, and Guts tells her, "Nah, that's a beat. The sound of the sea god's beating heart." He smiles, going on telling her that no matter how stupidly large this beast is, it's nothing more than a giant octopus. Looks like we're just gonna have to be a fishbone to its heart, huh? Shirke then starts to follow the blood flow to the sea god and points upward, stating, "Everything is centralized up here." Guts looks around the walls and says that they can either climb up the stomach walls or tear through the guts. It's gonna take them a while to get there. Just then, the small little pores start to open up, releasing liquid into the stomach. Guts sees that it's burning into one of the ships and asks, "Stomach acid, huh?" He waits for a moment and then he feels a shift in the ship and tells Shirke that they can just let the acid let the ships float by. That way it will get them closer to their target. Just as Guts starts to get to higher ground, Shirke and he start to hear a little skittering, and they see a swarm of parasites making their way towards them. Guts sighs. They must be climbing up to avoid the digestive fluid. Guess we're gonna have to hack through these then. Meanwhile, back at the Seahorse, one of the shipmates calls out that they see something in the distance, and it looks like a pirate ship. Bonebeard leads his ship closer towards the Seahorse, laughing, and Roderick's first mate asks, "What are we going to do then?" Roderick tells him, "We'll do what we must. Everyone ready the starboard cannons and fire." The Seahorse's cannons begin to fire into the slug creatures, and Bonebeard yells, "It doesn't matter to me! We'll just keep on coming!" Just as the slugs push up, they're repelled by the cardinal barrier surrounding the ship, and everyone begins to cheer, with Roderick laughing, stating, "That's extraordinary! To think that she could have such monsters!" And Ishidora yells, "Wow!" Ivalaria shouts that they will refer to Farnese as a goddess now. She is the Seahorse's own patron goddess. And Roderick then calls out, "All right, with the swarm this close, it doesn't matter if we take aim. Let them have it." The cannons go off again, thinning the slug numbers, and as they start to pull back, everyone cheers, and just then Bonebeard yells, "Ye useless scurvy-ridden curs!" And he starts to steer his ship into the slugs. As he's plowing through the swarm, his ship gets closer, and it passes through Farnese's barrier. Everyone begins to shout, asking how, and Farnese tells them it's because the formation only wards of things not in this world. With Bonebeard's transformation, though, Bonebeard's ship crashes into the Seahorse, knocking everyone to the ground, and then he and his pirates begin to board, stating, "It's time we did some pirating, mateys! Once we slice and dice and gobble them down, all will be forgiven. Oh, a tentacle's life for me!" And just as he says that, he notices something small being thrown into the mouth of one of the pirates. A second later, its head explodes, and Ishidora tosses more small bombs, stating that not even the filthiest soldier would ever want to be a tentacle. So gross! As the battle for the Seahorse begins back inside of the sea god's stomach, Guts continues swiping away, trying to keep the parasites back. Shirke yells that there are too many, and Guts looks back at the mast, and he begins to climb it. Once he reaches the top, Shirke asks, "What are you planning on doing?" And without saying a word, Guts jumps into the air, slicing into the wall of the stomach. As the sword cuts a hole, it soon stops, and Guts just hangs in place. Shirke begins to yell, asking, "What are you thinking?" And Guts tells her, "Wait for it." Once the tear opens up, there's a sudden gust of air that pushes the two of them up and into the upper levels of the sea god. Shirke asks how did he know that would happen, and Guts tells her it's kind of like a burp with the accumulated gas from the acid. But it doesn't look like we're out of the woods yet. As Shirke finally calms down and looks forward, she looks around to see several long-legged creatures crawling around, and Guts tells her, "This is it. We've come this far, we're going to be pushing through them." Back outside on the seahorse, everyone takes up arms to try and hold back Bonebeard and his men, including Azan and Farnese. Farnese releases magical vines to try and stop some of the pirates, and Bonebeard asks his men, "What are you doing standing around for?" Bonebeard begins to grumble, but as he turns around, Ishidoro lunges in to cut away at him. Bonebeard deflects the fire dagger with his crutch while blocking the short sword with his own sword, and Ishidoro struggles to try and overpower Bonebeard, but Bonebeard tells him, "You've improved since the last time we've met." And Ishidoro tells him, "Yeah, I'm a growing boy after all, and thanks to you, I've been practicing." He rolls back, grabbing a woven basket, slamming it onto Bonebeard's head, bringing it down with his dagger. Bonebeard manages to stop the dagger just before it can hit him, and then he thinks, "This kid isn't just another deck boy." He then asks Ishidoro, "How would you feel about switching sides? You be pirate material." And Ishidoro yells, "No way! You're filthy, stupid, and you smell like fish." Bonebeard then sighs, I see I'm not convincing anyone. It's time to kill you." Just then, Bonebeard lifts his crutch to reveal a hidden crossbow at the base of the crutch, and he takes aim for Ishidoro. But before he can fire, a small, sharp metal piece is thrown, hitting Bonebeard in the head, causing him to miss Ishidoro. Ishidoro looks back to see Izma holding one of the navigational tools, yelling that she did it. "Did you see? I really did it!" And Roderick then gives the order to everyone to keep advancing, but as they push Bonebeard into a corner, the pirates start bursting into flames. One of the tentacle faces lean up, trying to suck back the pirates, but Izma continues throwing around anything that she can, which happens to be bottles of alcohol. Ishidoro yells that is dangerous and she needs to leave, and that's when he notices the alcohol bottles. Izma looks back and tells him, "Yeah, I've been throwing a bunch of those." And Ishidoro gets an idea. He takes one of the small bombs from before and he lights the fuse, and as he tosses it into the tentacle's mouth, it explodes into a fiery blaze, and Bonebeard shouts to everyone to pull back. As his ship pulls away, he yells, "We will be back!" And everyone begins to cheer at their victory. But as soon as they all leave, they quickly turn to Farnese, praising her as the protective goddess of the seahorse. Ivalaria tells everyone to shut it any louder and they may break Shirkei's spell. But as the sailors quietly cheer, Serpico looks off out at sea, noticing that all they have to do is wait for Guts now. Back inside of the sea god, Guts continues pushing through the innards until he feels a crushing weight on top of him. After a few more steps, he sees why. The beating heart of the sea god is so intense that it's making his entire body go numb from vibration. Guts tries to move forward, but the heart begins to beat harder, causing him to stumble and fall back. But outside on the seahorse, the small child from before looks out into the ocean and starts to climb the ropes for a better view. Also at this time, Izma completely stops moving and says that she's really cold and scared. Roderick reaches out to pull the boy down, but before he can, he points back out towards the island. Suddenly, the rocks along the ridges begin to crumble and fall, and then a giant black mass pushes itself out of the cave. Inside the sea god, dozens of creatures begin to worm their way out, and Shirkei asks how could there be so many, while Guts tells her, "This must really be a sea god. It's like the ocean floor with all of these things." While the sea god begins to push itself out of the island, its giant body destroys parts of the island, causing a massive tidal wave. Izma runs to the edge of the boat, yelling that was her island, her home, where her father told her to stay. And just then the sea god roars and the tidal wave begins to beat on the side of the seahorse. As everyone braces for impact, Guts gets ready to cut through all of the sea creatures, protecting its heart. And with every cut he makes, another monster raises up to replace it. As Guts finally clears a path through the creatures all lunge forward, biting down, locking him in place. And outside, the waves hit the seahorse hard enough to throw Ishidoro off the side, dragging him down into the tentacle-filled waters. Izma yells for him, but as everyone tells her not to, Izma then jumps into the water after him. She swims and grabs him, holding onto him just as she sees the tentacle monsters creeping towards them. As she swims, she hears a voice, and it tells her to speak her name. Her true name. Izma asks, "True name?" Her name is... And just as she quietly says it, her entire body begins to change into a mermaid. Ishidoro panics as he can't breathe, and Izma kicks her tail, launching her and Ishidoro back out of the water. She crash lands back on the ship, and everyone just stares. She starts smacking Ishidoro in the face, telling him to wake up, and as she does, he sees Izma in her mermaid form leaning over him. He starts pointing back, and Izma asks what is he looking at, and Ishidoro yells, "Tail!" And Izma then looks back and sees she has a tail. She wags it around, and after a few moments starts shouting, "Whoa! Was it because of all the fish I ate? Maybe it's just a giant fish biting onto me." As Izma flops around in excitement, she stops and says the stories her father told her must have been true. She really is a marrow. Everyone starts to surround Izma and ask how did this even happen, and she says, well, it was like she heard a whisper. She's always heard it but never knew how to make out what it was saying, and this time it was crystal clear. It told her to speak her true name, and when she did, this happened. Ishidoro asks, "True name? And Isma says, yeah, it was. That Ivalaria flies up telling her, stop! Fairies and spirits have top secret names that they must never tell humans. If people knew it, then they would use it against you and change you back whenever it was recited. If anyone else was to know it, then they would have you under their control. You must never tell anyone unless you're sure you can trust them. Isma says, really? No way! But it's fine, I trust you all. And Ivalaria asks, do you really trust Ishidori here? Just look at him. While everyone takes their time to look at Isma, they start to feel the waves getting rough again, and everyone looks over the side and sees other things swimming along the ship. And Isma yells, that's! Everyone looks over to see dozens of mermaids swimming under the ship towards the sea god. But inside of the sea god, the sea creatures continue biting down on Guts until he finally gathers enough strength to spin and tear his way free. More creatures fling themselves at him, and Guts then swings down on his sword, ripping through them. And then he starts to head towards the heart, but as it beats, it stops Guts, causing him to start bleeding from his ears and mouth. The eye within the chamber stares at Guts, and suddenly Guts begins to cough up blood. But back outside, everyone watches the host of mermaids making their way towards the sea god, and Isma starts pulling herself back over the ledge. Ishidoro tells her to wait, but Isma says that it's all true. The legends and everything my father said was true. We've got to go help them. She jumps into the water and yells, don't worry, this is my island, and the Marrows will fight against the sea god. Ishidoro runs up to Roderick asking what is he waiting for. They need to go after them and help. Move the ship into position and fire the cannons. And with that, Roderick turns the ship and begins to head straight to the sea god, alongside the mermaids. And that brings us to the conclusion of chapter 324. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And I'm just gonna say it, I really love talking like a pirate. We should find a pirate thing that I can do, yarr!